Hi, I'm Lizzie.
And I'm Brenda.
And welcome back to Small Step Society. This is Season 2, Episode 4, Cultivating Resilience.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hey guys!
Hi!
Today we're talking about cultivating resilience.
Yes.
And we're just going to be going into why it's important to stay strong even in the face of hardships, difficulties. We're going to talk about what you can do to cultivate that resilience. And before we get into it, it's of course time for our weekly segment, Song of the Moment.
What's your song of the moment?
It's Dollhouse by Del Watergap.
Oh.
Del Watergap? I'm not sure, but I feel like with this band and then like my last two songs of the last three song of the moments, that's pretty much encompassing all the artists I've been listening to for like the past 2 months. Yeah. So check them all off.
Nice, that's good.
Yeah. What about you?
Mine's Unwritten by Natalie Bedingfield. Yeah.
Classic.
Bringing it back.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought it would be cool to start this episode off with talking about a little psychology experiment that's pretty related. I feel like everyone hears about it in their intro to psych classes, but it's a great kind of precedent to this episode. So it was actually, the study was actually created, or I guess ran by the father of positive psychology. His name is Martin Seligman, and him and his team, they ran this experiment on this phenomenon, I guess you could call it, of sorts, called learned helplessness. And this is basically the hopeless and passive resignation that humans and other animals learn when unable to avoid repeated aversive events. In simpler terms, it just means that when humans or really any living organism experiences a lot of bad outcomes or negative events, especially back to back, you kind of draw back and you're just like, I can't do anything. I'm just resigned to this fate. But this experiment is kind of cool. So what they did was they had two groups of dogs and they exposed them to electric shocks. I know, it's very sad. But one group of the dogs they were given the option to press a lever that would stop the shocks. And the other ones in this kind of like training session with the shocks, they weren't, like they had no lever. They just had to
endure it.
Yeah, yeah. And so afterwards, all of these dogs, both Group 1 and Group 2, they were placed on a ground that was shocked, and there was a barrier that they could jump over and then escape the shocks, and that would be done, right? Funny enough, Group 1, the one that had that lever and they were able to escape the shocks in their training session, they all did it. But the conditioned dogs, the ones that were conditioned to just accept their fate, did in fact accept their fate. They learned that they couldn't do anything to try to change the situation, despite like seeing that a solution was easily accessible. They just jump over the thing. So I thought that was just like a great kind of science-based way to lead into what we're talking about, which is how can us as humans, leave the circumstances that we may have been dealt and grow from them instead of resigning ourselves to the fate that we maybe choose based on what we've endured. So let's get into it.
Yeah, and I think being resilient is a skill that takes time and effort because not everyone is born with thick skin or the ability to bounce back quickly. But we can adapt to our circumstances and learn different ways to be resilient. So yeah, let's talk about some of the ways and some of the situations that we're very commonly in.
It's incredibly easy to be in this kind of woe-is-me mindset. I feel like we all experience this from time to time. It's kind of inevitable. If you're really, especially I feel like when you're pursuing a goal and you're trying and you keep experiencing those setbacks, you really fall into that woe-is-me mindset where you're like, maybe I'm just not meant to be here. I need to take the hint and just accept that I'm not good enough. I feel like that's kind of maybe a little dramatic, but the general mindset that people are in. But we can all climb out of dark places.
Yes. Actually, Karen Brewer, a licensed independent clinical social worker who is the director of Faculty and Staff Assistant Office at the Boston University, wrote an article called Cultivating Resilience and said one of the best ways to get out of feeling or like being in the woe-is-me mindset is avoid seeing crises as like insurmountable problems. Because I think it's really, I mean, like highly stressful events and like circumstances are unavoidable. They're going to come, right? But we can always choose how we decide to like react to it. Yeah, and she had also said, try looking beyond the present to how future circumstances may be a little better, and know any like subtle ways in which you might already feel somewhat better as you deal with these difficult situations. Because in the moment, it's really hard, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're like, okay, if I get out of this, what's waiting for me? Yeah. Like, I can do it. It's just a little hill. It's not a mountain. Like, I think it makes it a little more tackleable.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like it's the cliche, like, life is a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
Even when there's a valley, there's always a peak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. But I think that kind of leads into my way of thinking about this, which I feel like we all hear about. I don't know. I feel like for the past 10 years, like, it's already been coming up, where you hear about like the fixed mindset versus growth mindset. You know, I feel like maybe it's a little overdone, but it's very applicable here. So in terms of like trying to look beyond the present, like a good way of doing that is thinking of setbacks, framing them as stepping stones in your mind, and learning from your mistakes. And I know that's especially hard when there are other people around you that may seem to be dealing with like the same circumstances in quote unquote a better way, or they're just able to cope with it maybe easier. But one, I mean, we've talked about this so many times, but like, you don't know what people are actually going through. It's very easy to put on a persona and just, you know, especially if you're used to like masking those emotions, it's very easy to do that. But also, you don't need to compare your timeline to that of another person, because we are all struggling in different areas and we all have different strengths. So say I'm dealing with problem A and problem B, and you're also dealing with those same kind of problem A and problem B. I might be dealing with I might be finding it really hard to deal with problem A, and then problem B is kind of minute for me. Whereas you might be coping really well with problem A, and then problem B is the kind of struggle point for you. Point being, I wouldn't know that. Like, if I were to only compare my experience with problem A to your experience with problem A, because that's all I'm seeing, of course I'm going to think that I'm not, like, able to, like, I'm not competent enough to climb out of this. I'm, like, too weak. But in reality, you don't know what other people are going through. Like, if you're struggling, I mean, if we're all struggling in certain areas, and so just because you don't falter in one place doesn't mean that you're not in another. And at the end of the day, it's just important to kind of just take yourself out of the competitive mindset and just see, okay, you are dealing with problem A better. How are you actually coping with it? What is what is working for you that maybe I need to try? So just learning not only from your mistakes, but also learning from other people's
that's good.
experiences.
Yeah. This isn't super related to resilience, but I just wanted to say it because we were like talking about comparing timelines. We're not identical people, so it doesn't make sense for us to have the same timeline. So I feel like, like you're meant to be where you are, and like it's okay to be where you are. So, yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's something that's very easily forgotten.
Yeah, it is. And that's the other thing. Like, you're also comparing yourself to only the present person. You know what I mean? You don't know what their future looks like. You don't know what their pasts look like. I feel like a lot of times, well, we all know, like, we learn from our experiences. Generally speaking, we grow from them. And so if you're dealing with, say, that problem A, you know, better than me, maybe that's because you've had repeated experiences like that, and maybe this is my first time. So yeah, like, your timeline is completely different.
Right.
And also, speaking to like the whole past, present, future thing, you can't change the past. I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but you can't. So you might as well grow from it, because, you know, why else? What else are you going to do with that experience, you know?
Right. Yeah. I think one thing that helps me get out of the woe-is-me mindset, because I feel like as college students, or as just students in general, it's very easy to be in this mindset because you're constantly like in a battle against, like in a race against time to do your assignments, your other things and stuff. So this is what I tell myself. I can do hard things because I'm capable and I'm hardworking and I'm determined. I can do hard things.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I feel better enough
Yeah.
to jump out of that hill. So,
The positive affirmations.
Yes.
The power pose.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the positive affirmations that I just mentioned leads really well into Karen Brewer's another point in her article of Cultivating Resilience, where she said, nurture a positive view of yourself. Because if you build self-confidence and trust in your ability to solve problems, then it's easier for you to get through those hard times.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That makes me think, like, I feel like people always say, like, in 1 year, like, you'll laugh about it, and it's true. But, like, also in 1 year, not only will you laugh and be like, wow, that's, like, crazy they went through that, you know? But two, I feel like a lot of the times you look back and you're almost proud of yourself for dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that could also be the lesson that whatever hard experience you're going
Yeah.
through was meant to teach you.
Yeah. 100%. A lesson doesn't have to be, I don't know, it can be like, quote unquote, a little more negative,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like there's always, like, some sort of, like, silver lining in everything.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to look for it.
Yes.
Sometimes it's harder than other times.
Yeah. But along the lines of, like, having a positive view of yourself, reminder to also take care of yourself and, like, listen to your bodily cues, whether it be physical or psychological, and definitely keep an eye out for your needs and feelings. And I know it sounds like the worst idea ever to just, like, step back from the current stressful situation to, like, take a breather, because your instinct is to, like, kind of, like, try to fight it, right? But whether it be, like, walking around the block, having a dance party, having a cry session, like, I think just taking a little break and coming back also is a good idea, just to, like, fulfill your needs and your emotional needs at that point.
Yeah, and also, like, reset your mindset.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of connects to what we talked about last week,
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, kind of relating to all of these, like, really listening to your body and, like, having these emotions. I wanted to share something that I saw from an interview of these Korean actors. So it was 2 actors. One was more senior to the other, and the younger one was like, I don't know why, like, I sway so much and, like, I'm having these, like, really hard feelings and, like, I don't know how to take care of it. And they were, like, sitting on a bench looking at a tree, and the senior was like, how old do you think this tree is? And the younger actor was like, I don't know, probably older than me. And he was like, yeah, but so, like, that tree is older, right? And it probably has its roots so deep into the ground, yet it still sways in the wind. So I feel like it makes sense that humans would sway, right?
Yeah.
So I think, like, the point of this little excerpt of the interview is that it's okay to be feeling stressed and overwhelmed, because we are just humans.
Yeah.
You know? But we'll get through it.
Yeah, if you compare yourself to a tree, we're just this tiny little piece of all of their life that they're gonna live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, think of an oak tree, and then you.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of lessons you can learn from nature.
Yes.
That's why alone time's good. Also, kind of drawing from pop culture, I guess, is I feel like a lot of feel-good stories about successful people starting from nothing, making do with what they had. Like, for example, like Steve Jobs, you know, going from eating, like, really, really cheap ramen every single day in, like, a warehouse, I think
I think
to,
it's a garage.
yeah, something like that, to, like, growing, you know, and
Mhm.
building Apple. I think we all know that. But like stories like that always, I think, particularly resonate with everyone, because we all want to be able to bounce back from adversity,
Mhm.
but we just don't know how to.
Mhm.
And, you know, when you look at all of these successful people, no matter what kind of background they came from, whether it be from, you know, like a well-to-do background, or they really started from the bottom, resilience is, like, the one thing that's there. Like, resilience really is key to success.
Mhm.
Yeah, nobody gets to the top of anything without overcoming things,
Mhm.
especially mountains.
That's true. Especially mountains, yeah.
But I think that there are definitely tips and tricks that you can develop over time to creating normality in your life to kind of feel balance and plant those roots so that even when you sway in the wind like a tree, you don't fall down.
Yeah.
I think one of the ways that I kind of create that normality in my life is having a morning routine and having a night routine. That way, even when anything else in my life and my day gets disrupted, if nothing goes to plan, at least I still know that I will be going home, taking a shower, brushing my teeth, doing all of that stuff, and then going to bed in the same way every night.
That's true.
And then I wake up in the same way every morning. And if I find out, or if I realize that something in my morning routine is causing me stress, I take it out.
Nice. That's very good.
What about you?
I don't know if I have like a set thing that I do to create normality, but I think in the situations where I feel overwhelmed and like feel a little stressed, I try to be more thankful. I try to be more intentional when I'm thinking and be like, wow, I'm really thankful for the sun today, even though it's really hot.
Yeah.
But it's really nice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the little bits of positive thought eventually infiltrate my stress, and then it becomes more positive.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like also, I mean, there's a balance of it, but like taking your mind off the stress in certain situations can also be good. Like if you're the one that's like causing your stress in the sense of I feel like, okay, there's a certain amount of stress that you can withstand until you like crack and you break under the pressure, and then you like fully remove yourself from the situation. Like I feel like there's an amount of stress that you can get under for homework, for example, until you're like, I can't do it. I'm just not going to do the assignment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when you're reaching that breaking point, that's when you really need to step back and say, okay, I'm not going to let it get to that procrastination point. I'm going to take like, even 5 minutes or even 30 minutes to myself and just recalibrate, Speaking of positive thoughts, let's revisit Martin Seligman. So off the back of, the research that he did with learned helplessness and everything, he created the Penn Resiliency Program under the direction of Karen Rivich and Jane Gillum of the University of Pennsylvania. And this program was geared towards younger adults and children. And actually it's used by the U.S. Army, especially like for people who are dealing with PTSD and all of those things. So this program has actually been replicated in 21 diverse school settings, ranging from suburbs to inner cities, from Philadelphia to Beijing.
Wow.
I know. So it's applied in many different scenarios. And they also created a 10-day program in which teachers, at those schools, learn techniques for becoming more optimistic in their own lives and how to teach those techniques to their students. And I feel like that's one of those, like that's almost one of those, I guess like career paths that having good mental health care and strong positive psychology is very, very much overlooked. Especially I feel like, not to get too much into it, but in my sociology class a couple semesters ago, we read this book and it was talking about how like flight attendants, for example, they have to put on a front at like all times, no matter how they're feeling. I mean, I guess anyone in retail really, but like they have to put on a positive front and interact positively with their customers, no matter what kind of things they're going through. And I feel like that's especially true for teachers, where every single little thing you do and say, especially like teaching elementary school students, affects them so deeply, and so you have to really be careful what you're saying. So I think this is a great initiative, but they actually found that it reduces depression and anxiety in the children under their care, which is amazing. So yeah, I would highly recommend checking that out.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I feel like that could be something that we could work on too, kind of like how we had our experience with like connecting with others, like trying to be more optimistic.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I feel like I've heard a lot of people saying like, how you were talking about how you were thankful for the sun and all of this. People recommend like keeping a gratitude journal, like logging a couple things. So I think that's something that's kind of under the same vein of all of what we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. I think talking about resilience, Resilience goes hand in hand really well with navigating transitions. So yeah, if you want to learn more about navigating transitions, I recommend you guys listening to our episode, season 1, episode 7, called Accepting Change, because we go really deep into like navigating transitions and accepting change.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of resilience that's applicable when you're going through whatever change it might be.
Yes, 100%.
So, self-plug.
Yes. Yeah, that's it for our episode this week regarding cultivating resilience. But thank you for tuning in this week.
Yeah, you can find us every single Sunday on YouTube to see our faces. But if you just want to listen to audio, you can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can find podcasts except where you can't. And also follow us on Instagram at Small Step Society Pod.
Yes, thank you.